Hello again. I'm once again Stephen Flanders. This is 15 Minutes to Save America, episode 21. This is the final episode. This is the conclusion. Uh, Talking about the open media, the biggest reason I push it is because of the lessons I learned out of the 1960s. In the 1960s, I saw what happened to leaders. John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King. Somebody started leading us out of this wilderness. They kind of got a target in the back of their head or the front of it. So I came to the conclusion we're not going to have leaders that lead us out of this. We've got to find a way to lead ourselves. That's what the open media does, is it gives us a way to lead ourselves, if we will. And with it, we can reverse this decline we've been on. We can set up a period of reform and renewal and refounding. In this reform era, we'll be able to one by one go through and look at all these various powers the federal government has, decide what we want them to keep, what we don't want them to keep, how to devolve it back down to the states. This would be an orderly, peaceful, informed, well-discussed process, not panicked. And that would, give us the ability to balance some things I think we will want to have the federal government remain involved in. Like I say, for one thing, I think the environmental law needs better than to just have a department in the executive with no real constitutional authority. And if we don't do that, then we're reduced to using lawsuits in the federal courts. I think we need a clear delegation of powers to the federal government, but it needs to be very strictly limited also. But that's, just one area that I'd be talking about. The other side of it is, and the reason we want to devolve as many powers back down to the states and localities as possible is because of the blessings of local community moral self-government. It really is a structure that encourages strong citizens and strong communities. And that's why as many powers as we can would be better to devolve to the local community, because we would find better things getting done. Okay, we'd find better solutions. Now, make no mistake, it's going to be some work involved with that. And, along those lines of, the kind of work that might increase to the individual citizens compared to what we have today. Let me read this quote from Thomas Paine. He wrote this in The American Crisis, September 12, 1777. Those who expect to reap the blessings of freedom must, like men, undergo the fatigue of supporting it. Okay? And that's, just absolutely true, and we need to keep that in mind, But with that in mind, if we were to actually stand up like free-born human beings, every aspect of society could get better. We could have a reform of our corporate structure, a much better economy, much more emphasis on small entrepreneurs, but not have to, have some sort of thoroughgoing socialism. Our social programs could be devolved mostly to the local community, and there'd be a lot of efficiencies by doing it that way. Okay, there's a lot less money that needs to be going into it, partly because of the moral interplay between local community and the clients or recipients. There'd be a way to try and elevate them morally, and in developing local community moral self-government and having people in local communities morally govern themselves, we'd be naturally elevating the moral consciousness of all the citizens. At the same time as we would devolve these powers to much more local control and state control, our high-tech capabilities would enable us to still defend human rights across the nation and the world. I mean, local excesses could be resisted by people being aware and keeping themselves aware. And that's part of the work. It takes more work. It takes more work to be free. I'm going to hit on that theme a few times. But with our tools, the work can be carried out, and we can actually defend our own human rights and not depend on some distant, supposedly benign government. In the same way, the open media can be a tool for justice, just by the simple fact that the voices of the victims can no longer be silenced. Okay? People engaged in all kinds of scurrilous activities wouldn't be able to depend on the idea that the poor and the victims of their machinations will never be heard. In fact, as some of them start being heard, it would really roll back what people think they can get away with and pushing people around. In short, it would work as well as we make it work. Okay? When the Constitution was first written, there was a sentiment amongst some of the people that they'd made a machine that could go of itself. And when some of the founders heard that, they rebuked the people pretty severely. No, it's an old temptation in this country, started back then. It's going on today. The idea that all these things that we want to set up on automatic pilot, let it be a machine that will go of itself. Everything take care of itself. That's the big appeal of big government socialism, is that we don't really need to do anything. Just sit there and lap up the gravy and it'll take care of itself. Well, government left to itself becomes nothing but the tool of tyrants. It will. The only defense against it is if the people are engaged in maintaining their own freedom. Okay, that gets right back to what Franklin said, told the woman when they came out of the Constitutional Convention and she asked, what kind of government do you have you given us? And he said, a republic, if you can keep it. Well, keeping it means staying involved and making sure it stays in line and on its leash and doing what it's supposed to be doing. To change notes a little bit, we're not talking about some Luddite future where we're going to be, going back to the past. We're not going to go back to plowing with rocks or horses or any of it. We will bring all of our scientific advancements with us into this new society. That's one of the things that makes it really exciting. Our local communities would be empowered by the technological revolution. In fact, quite the opposite of being a Luddite thing, it answers what I think is the biggest question of the day, which is technology, which is are technological advances going to be used to usher in some kind of golden age and really make life better, or the same technology, you're talking computers, surveillance cameras, all the other communication equipment, is it going to be used to set up some sort of totalitarianism? That's really the question of the age. And I'm not sure we've answered it that it'll be for our good. I see too many things being used to just keep the people in line. Look at the way they can use drugs. That's another aspect of modern technology. You can have, and so that's the question. Is technology going to be a boon or a bane to the human race? And that's really a lot that needs to be answered by how we respond to our government and getting it back in the call to get it back on the short leash of being accountable to our communities and us. This call to liberty can be ignored. Okay? We can just let this moment pass when people are kind of upset and, everybody's divided, everybody's agitated, but everybody's kind of at each other's throats. We can ignore this, go back to where the left is, content with being, the great virtue signalers, hating corporations, supposedly hating the rich, except the rich that provide funding for their programs, and basically joining together to demonstrate and riot and activate to make sure that themselves and the people they align with get more than their share at the government trough. That's the basic stance of the left. Now, the stance of the right is almost the diametric opposite. And they'll just, if we ignore this call to freedom, the right can be, continue to just hate big government, be bewildered by the ongoing decline in the morals of the people, and be bewildered at the faithlessness of the Republican representatives they elect. And they're like, what do we do? What do we do? They don't keep their promises. politicians don't keep their promises. Oh my, how can we deal with that? As my goodness. On the other hand, if the people that really want to diminish the powers of corporations could somehow find their way to get together with those that want to diminish the power of government, form together in the cause of liberty, we would find that together we can find real solutions to our many problems. And that, along with the enhancement of our personal lives, the strengthening of our communities and families, the ability to really solve some of our problems, is why to once again start believing in liberty. Now, I'm going to read through something I read in one other, and I'm going to go to the same riff because I think it was important. Out of the Declaration of Independence. Now, we went through all the usurpations and abuses. And it says from the Declaration of Independence, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for the future security. That's exactly what I've been talking about here. And it talks about a duty. And we do have a duty. We certainly have a duty to ourselves and each other. But the American government and the technological beast it has spawned is so powerful that we really have a duty to the rest of humanity. I mean, we're so powerful that everything we do has a big effect on the world. So we have a duty to get things in line. And our technological capabilities and like I say, the technological beast we have spawned has so much effect on the natural world that we have a duty to the natural world, to the plants and the animals, to get a handle on this and to not just let it drift off into what it's becoming and getting worse. Or not. We can just let it go, let it fade away, okay? Let this whole call to freedom just fade into the distance, and later on, this same thinking will be used as a post-mortem analysis to try and understand what happened to humanity's first great republic. It's all up to you and me and all of us. It's a question, do we fear to believe in freedom anymore? Or would we rather just be coddled into accepting a zombie-like slavery? That at this point, all I'm asking, all that's being called for you to do is share these episodes and start sharing this idea. If you can't do that, okay, what? I can't do anything more. You get a bunch of people going, maybe we can get some stuff going. But just share these with your friends. Start talking about it, and we'll find out that, yeah, we really do want our freedom back. Thanks. Well, that's it. That's the entire series. The blog is lifeinafascistcountry.blogspot.com. The whole book is contained in, lifeinblogspot.com /2025 /02 how-and-y-2-save-america.html. And there it is, the way America was torn apart and how we can get it back together and why. From the beginning of the telegraph, the press got controlled, corporate personhood rose. That created a huge, lack of confidence in the people in their own local self-government. The 16th, 17th, and 18th Amendments resulted. had a government by experts starting to come in, elitism. Franklin Roosevelt made it worse, set up a kind of fascism, and the moral decline of the country that followed with Social Security and socialism was that brought about acceptance of turning the First Amendment precisely on its head, so that by 1963, we had a virtually complete loss of the form of government the country was started with. And because of that, we lost the blessings of liberty, all the blessings of local community moral self-government, the citizenship and the moral uprightness and consciousness rising in the people. We can reform it, and that also played into racism. We can reform and refound the country. There's a process to do that, and by a constitutional amendment to establish a true public forum called the open media, we'd be able to affect those other changes. So that's the plan. Fight fascism, and be sure and share this. Just stand up and start sharing this and talking about it. Everything else can follow from there. I'm not asking you to send money. Thank you.